Hi class, this lecture is going to go over chapter 12. So chapter 12 talks about language, and contrary to popular belief, language does not simply mirror reality. Language helps create our sense of reality by giving meaning to events. Words are the tools of a speaker's craft, and you're going to see that as you begin to put these speeches together. So what I'm going to do is talk about the different language devices from chapter 12, and then you can think about how you can use these in your upcoming speeches. So let's get started. The first one is denotative meaning. So words have two kinds of meanings, denotative and connotative. The denotative meaning is the precise, literal, and objective meaning of a word. What I'd like to say is it's the dictionary meaning of a word. Contrary to that is connotative meaning. Connotative meanings are more variable, figurative, and subjective. They're meanings that are suggested by associations or emotions. That we can trigger emotions in someone just by a word or a phrase. So choosing words skillfully for their denotative and connotative meanings is a crucial part of the speaker's art, and you should have a good balance within your speeches. So once you know the different meanings that you can use within your speeches, there's some guidelines on how to use language that I'd like to go over. First is using language accurately. This is vital to a speaker, as using numbers accurately is to an accountant. Speakers who have serious aspirations should develop a systematic plan for improving their vocabulary in order to use language accurately. Public speakers also need to use language clearly, because listeners cannot turn to a dictionary or reread a speaker's words to discover their meaning. A speaker's meaning must be immediately comprehensible. One way to ensure that a speaker's meaning is clear is to use familiar words. I said this in another lecture. Stay away from jargon, acronyms. Use familiar words that we understand. Another way to ensure that the speaker's meaning is clear is to use concrete words. And a third way to ensure that your meaning is clear is to eliminate what I like to call linguistic clutter, filler words, like that sort of thing. Public speakers also need to use language vividly and appropriately. So you think about these 4 guidelines when you're starting to decide what words you would like to use. What's also important is effective speakers use imagery to express their ideas vividly. So imagery, you are telling a description to create a mental image of objects, actions, ideas. Don't just tell me, you want to show me through your words. So there's another thing of using abstract words versus concrete words. I'd like to go over that briefly. Abstract words references general concepts, qualities, and attributes. Concrete words, on the other hand, is reference to tangible objects. So one way to generate imagery is to use concrete words, words that we understand, words that create meaning, words that we can visualize. Again, that's about creating imagery, is painting a picture in our minds. So I think this is a great example of being too abstract and then being concrete. So abstract, it says physical activity. That doesn't paint a picture in my mind. I have no idea what that means. So then you say sports. Okay, starting to paint a picture, but still too general. So you start to get a little clearer. Basketball. All right, you're getting there. Now I'm starting to create an image. Professional basketball, even clearer. LeBron James. That's as concrete as you can get. So that's an example of how you can be concrete to create an image in our minds. Some other ways that you can create imagery using similes. You can generate imagery through the use of a simile, comparing things using like or as. For example, don't just say you're cold. Say, I was as cold as ice. Creates an entirely new meaning just by using a simile. Here's another example. Personal data is flowing like a torrent into NSA servers. So again, when you see something using like or as, that's a simile. Metaphors are similar to similes. Their comparison is not introduced with like or as. So basically what it is, it's an implicit comparison between things that are essentially different but have something in common. One of the most famous metaphors are the eyes are the windows to the soul. You're comparing eyes and windows to create a vision into our soul. It's a metaphor. It doesn't use like or as, but nonetheless, you're comparing things that are essentially different, but still have something in common. America's cities are the windows through which the world looks at American society. So instead of comparing eyes to windows, they're actually comparing American cities to windows. Again, it's a metaphor to create a new meaning. Effective speakers also use rhythm to enhance the vividness of their discourse. Language has a rhythm created by the choice and arrangement of words. So in the next few slides, I'm going to go over 4 basic stylistic devices for enhancing the rhythm of your speech. The first one is parallelism. Parallelism is so important in creating rhythm. So this is the similar arrangement of a pair or series of related words, phrases, or sentences. You can do this doing the exact same words, like I said, or you can actually say sentences. And I'll show you one in the next slide. Rich and poor, intelligent and ignorant, wise and foolish, virtuous and vicious, man and woman, it is ever the same. Each soul must depend wholly on itself. So you see how it is, everything is parallel using the word and. Repetition is another great way to build rhythm. Repeating the same word or set of words at the beginning or end of successive clauses and sentences. If not now, when? If not us, who? If not together, how? This is the perfect use of repetition to build emotion. Alliteration is used a lot in speeches. This is repeating the initial consonant sound in close or adjoining words. So here's a good example of using the consonant C. Nothing great is accomplished without cooperation, compromised, and common cause. It's perfect. It's using the consonant C, you're creating rhythm. Antithesis is the 4th device, a juxtaposition of contrasting ideas, usually in parallel structure. This is probably the most famous antithesis out there. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Okay, the next thing that chapter 12 discusses is how to use language appropriately. So you need to think about this when you're building the language in your speeches. A speaker's language should be appropriate to the occasion, to the audience, to the topic, and to yourself. So some things you want to think about. Public speakers are more effective when they use inclusive language. Audiences today expect public speakers to use inclusive language that is respectful of different groups that make up American society. So there are 4 principles for inclusive language that have become so widespread that no aspiring speaker can afford to ignore them. The first principle is avoiding the generic he. Avoid, we're not all men, so avoid man when referring to men and women together. The second principle is avoiding the use of man when referring to jobs, referring to social roles. Use names and groups to identify themselves. Don't just assume that a certain group is going to be a certain gender. So here's an example. Each time a surgeon walks into the operating room, he risks being sued for malpractice. That's stereotyping. Not every surgeon is a male. This is more effective. Each time a surgeon walks into the operating room, he or she risks being sued for malpractice. Here's another example that is ineffective, yet you hear it all the time. If a large comet struck the Earth, it could destroy all of mankind. How about instead say, if a large comet struck the Earth, it could destroy all human life. Here's another ineffective example of stereotyping. Being a small businessman in the current economic climate is not easy. Again, you are stereotyping a group of people saying that anyone in business must be male. Being a small business person in the current economic climate is not easy. That is much better. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about the use of self-identifiers. Look at the ineffectiveness of this. The Paralympics show what handicapped people can accomplish in the athletic arena. You might not see right away what it is, but there are different things that have changed over time, and this is one of them. So this is more effective. The Paralympics show what people with disabilities can accomplish in the athletic arena. So one of the greatest examples of use of language is Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech. It is a wonderful way of seeing almost every one of these language devices in there, whether it's parallelism, repetition, similes, metaphors. Actually, his Dr. King speech is full of metaphors. So when you listen to that, now you can listen to it with a whole new meaning of what you've learned through chapter 12.